Right now, you are thinking in words. Every thought you have, every plan you make, every feeling you try to understand, it arrives in language. But for the first 200,000 years of human existence, there were no words at all. And somehow, we built everything anyway. That fact should bother you more than it does. We treat language like oxygen, like it was always there, like the version of you that exists without it is not really you at all. But the version of us that existed without it built fires, buried their dead, crossed oceans on rafts, and painted horses on cave walls so precise that modern artists still can't explain how they did it. They did all of that in silence. So what was actually happening inside their heads? First, let's be precise about what we mean by language, because this is where most people get it wrong. Your ancestors were not mute. They made sounds, grunts, clicks, screams, calls. Mothers hummed to infants. Groups shouted warnings. The sounds were real, but sounds are not language. A crow can mimic a human voice. A parrot can say hello. Neither one of them is talking to you. Language is something different. Language is the ability to take something that exists only inside your head, an idea, a memory, a plan for next Tuesday, and transfer it, intact, into someone else's head using nothing but sound. That is a staggering thing to be able to do. And for most of human history, we couldn't. Linguists and anthropologists argue constantly about when true language appeared. The most widely accepted range is somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago. Some push it earlier, a few push it later. But even the most generous estimate leaves a gap of at least 200,000 years where anatomically modern humans, people with your skull, your hands, your brain, were walking the earth without a single word. 200,000 years. To put that in perspective, everything you know about human civilization, agriculture, writing, cities, empires, wars, religions, the internet, fits inside the last 12,000 years. The wordless era of humanity is roughly 17 times longer than all of recorded history combined. So what were they doing in there? The first thing to understand is that silence does not mean emptiness. The human brain was not waiting for language to switch on. It was already running, already building things that language would later try to describe. Think about what you can do without words right now. You can recognize a face you haven't seen in 20 years. You can catch a ball thrown at your head before you've consciously processed its coming. You can walk into a room and immediately feel that something is wrong, without knowing why. You can watch someone's hands and know, without a single word passing between you, whether they are frightened or confident. Your pre-linguistic ancestors were doing all of this, constantly, at a level of sophistication we've almost forgotten how to access. Archaeologist Francesco De Rico has spent decades studying the evidence our wordless ancestors left behind. What he found was not the behavior of confused, fumbling creatures waiting to be switched on. He found ochre, a red pigment, being deliberately processed and stored 300,000 years ago. He found shells with tiny drilled holes worn as jewelry 130,000 years ago. He found intentional burial of the dead, bodies placed carefully, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with tools, long before any word for death or afterlife existed. They were doing things that required abstract thought, planning, symbolism, ritual. They just weren't talking about it. The most important thing language eventually gave us was not thought. It was time. Before words, knowledge died with the person who had it. If a woman in your group knew which roots were poisonous, that knowledge lived in her hands and her memory. When she died, it went with her. The next generation had to learn it again, the hard way, by watching someone get sick. With language, knowledge became immortal. You could describe what you knew. You could warn people about things they hadn't seen yet. You could pass a memory forward through 10 generations, without a single person having to experience the original event. This is what anthropologists call cumulative culture, the ability to stack knowledge. Each generation picking up where the last one left off, instead of starting from scratch. Before language, our ancestors were extraordinarily capable individuals living in an extraordinarily thin collective memory. After language, the opposite became true. Individual humans got no smarter, but what we knew together became, for the first time, larger than what any one of us could hold. But here is where it gets strange, because if language was so useful, why did it take so long? The biology was ready. Your ancestors had the vocal anatomy, the brain capacity, the social complexity. All the hardware was in place hundreds of thousands of years before anyone started talking. Scientists have found the FOXP2 gene, sometimes called the language gene, in Neanderthals who lived 400,000 years ago. The same gene that allows your mouth and brain to coordinate the precise muscle movements that produce speech. They had the equipment, they just weren't using it, or weren't using it the way we do. and nobody fully knows why. One theory is that language didn't arrive as a sudden invention. It crept in slowly, a grunt that meant danger, a specific call that meant this particular kind of danger, a sound that meant the danger was gone. Over thousands of generations, the sounds became more precise, more combinable. Until one day, without anyone noticing, the sounds had become something else entirely. Another theory is that language was triggered by a change in social pressure. As groups got larger, the old systems, touch, proximity, shared attention, couldn't hold everyone together anymore. You can maintain a genuine social bond with maybe 150 people through behavior alone. Above that, you need stories. You need the ability to talk about people who aren't in the room. You need gossip, reputation, shared myth. Language, on this account, didn't give us thought. It gave us each other, at scale. And this is the part that should sit with you, before language. Your ancestors lived in a world of pure immediacy. No yesterday that could haunt you, no tomorrow that could terrify you. No word for regret, no word for dread. Whatever they felt it completely, and then it passed, and they moved on, the way every other animal on Earth still does. Language gave us the ability to hold on to things, to carry our past with us like luggage, to project ourselves into futures that don't exist yet and feel afraid of them. Every anxiety you have ever felt about something that hasn't happened yet is a gift from language. Every time you've lain awake, replaying a conversation from 3 years ago, that's language. The thing that makes you smarter than every other animal on Earth is also the thing that makes you the only one who lies awake at night. Your pre-linguistic ancestors never lost sleep over their reputation, never worried about whether they were good enough, never felt the particular modern ache of suspecting that everyone else had figured something out that they hadn't. They were present, not because they were enlightened, but because they had no other option. We spend thousands of dollars on meditation retreats trying to get back to a mental state our ancestors lived in every single moment of every single day. The cave paintings are the detail that always stops me. Lascaux, Chauvet, Altamira. These sites contain images so technically accomplished, so emotionally alive, that when Pablo Picasso first saw photographs of the Altamira paintings in the 1940s, he reportedly said, "We have invented nothing. The people who made them had, at most, the earliest fragments of language. Maybe a few hundred words between them. No art school, no tradition they could describe, no way to explain to each other what they were trying to do. And yet there it is, a charging bull, a swimming deer, horses running so fast you can feel the ground shake looking at them. They were saying something. Something that mattered enough to climb deep into a cave with a torch that might go out, mix pigment by hand, and press it carefully into cold stone. They just couldn't tell us what it was." Maybe that's the point. Maybe some things exist before language and cannot be fully captured by it. The feeling of watching something beautiful, the weight of losing someone, the particular quality of light just before dark. We invented words for all of it, and the words are useful. But the feelings were there first. Long before the first sentence was ever spoken, a human being stood in a cave in the dark, looked at a wall, and decided that something needed to be remembered. We've been talking ever since. But we started there.